David, what's your take on how the week has progressed? What's going on in the region? What's going on in Iran? Over to you.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, starting with those objectives, as Jonathan mentioned, there's a severe degradation in Iran's ability to project power via what used to be the largest ballistic missile arsenal in the Middle East. We have reports, I think, by the Israel Defense Forces Chief of Staff that the launch capacity, the number of launchers Iran has for those missiles, is down by 75%. On the home front in Israel, they've moved restrictions yesterday from essential activity to limited activity, which is a big change, an indication of confidence that from the Israelis that they are taking out Iran's ability to project that power. Iran's response has been to try and force its Gulf partners into pressuring Washington into ending the conflict. We've seen actually, compared to the 12-day war, much more of Iran's fire capability directed against its Gulf neighbors than against Israel itself, which is a notable development. As Jonathan mentioned, now the phase in terms of the Israeli strategy is, in addition to continuing to degrade those capabilities, it's also moving to target the internal apparatus of repression in Iran. So that's a second phase of the war for Israel. I think it's important to mention as well, Lily, this broader context. Iran has had a long-term strategy known as the Ring of Fire, and that was really conceived and executed by Qasem Soleimani before his assassination under President Trump's first term. This had two functions. One was to encircle Israel, bring about its demise through proxy forces, including Hamas, Hezbollah, which was the jewel in the crown of that ring, Shiite militias, Iraq, Syria, Houthis in Yemen. And the second function was to provide a deterrent from Israel striking Iran's developing nuclear program. And I think all that we're seeing this week indicates the complete collapse of that strategy of Iran's Ring of Fire. We haven't seen the Houthis joining in. We've seen very limited activities from these Shiite militias in Iraq. Of course, the Assad regime, since the collapse of the Assad regime, no involvement from Syria. And Hezbollah, it seems, under a lot of Iranian pressure, has entered the fray, and they're now paying a heavy price this week.
By the Israeli strikes. Gilbert, your take on what happened this past week?
Yeah, so, by this evening, we'll be a week into this war, and I think we're shifting into a new phase in this conflict. I think the U.S. military appears well on its way to establish air superiority over portions of Iran that stretch from its southeast all the way to its northwest. This obviously will open up new opportunities for CENTCOM to increase the pace and the scope of the strikes in Iran. The new phase also appears to move, as David suggested, beyond sort of the retaliatory capabilities to now decimating Iran's defense industrial base, and underground facilities as well. David mentioned that Iran had the most active ballistic missile program in the region. They also had one of the most active underground facilities program. So that's sort of an element of the new phase as well. It's important to remember this is a two-part operation. One is the Israeli operation, the Roaring Lion, and then the Epic Fury, which is the U.S.-led. These are coordinated, but they are pursuing vastly, I think, different objectives. There's synergies, but it's important to mention this because the stopping of one operation will not necessarily mean the end of the other operation. So they each are progressing towards their own objectives. One thing I would say is worth watching is the Strait of Hormuz. This is a narrow waterway that touches the coast of Iran. This is where upwards of 25% of world consumption of petroleum goes through. Also, about 20% of the liquid natural gas also goes through. Shipping has kind of paused through the strait at this point. So I think the question is, what's the near-term plan to recommence the transit of shipping through this important waterway?
Joe?
Yeah, no, I mean, one of the things we haven't quite touched on in more detail today just yet, it really is the continuing highlighting of the importance of drones in modern warfare, right? I mean, yes, I'm 100% correct in terms of how Jonathan, David, and Nober, you guys talked about how we've taken out a lot of the missile capabilities that Iran has. But I think one of the key things that we've seen is how damaging that the drones, that the Shaheeds that Iran the stockpile that they built out obviously is doing an incredible amount of damage both in Israel, in Iran's neighbors, and so how the U.S. partners in the region can actually respond to that is a key thing that is pretty interesting that we'll need to keep track of. And the Ukrainians have obviously been doing this for a very long time, and I think they volunteered. As Zelensky has talked about how Ukraine is ready to step up and provide some counter-drone capabilities that they've built up over the years to partners as well. So I think that'll be interesting to see. I know we'll have Gavin come on and speak up some of the regional developments as well. But I think one of the things that we need to keep track of is, it's only been a weekend for this conflict, right? As and we're in the fog of war. We don't quite know where the end state's going to be. And we haven't talked a lot about China or Russia just yet, right?
Right.
And obviously they're watching, they're waiting, and that's the other thing that we always need to keep in mind, right? They're over the horizon, waiting to take advantage of any trip-ups, any slip-ups that we have in the region. And so I think that's the other thing to keep in mind.
Right. Before we turn on to Gavin, I'll just say 3 points. Joe, I think militarily, so far this has been an incredible success. I think degrading their capabilities both internally as an infrastructure, but also the capability to threaten their neighbors, I think has been a huge success. I think economically, Iran has never been more isolated. I mean, this morning, UAE froze their assets, and I think that tells you all what you have to know. And I think politically, when you think about it, Russia didn't come to the rescue, even though we have intel reports today that they're providing targets for the American assets, I think, which is, I think it will bring a new element and a new factor in this conflict. But I think Iran is politically isolated, militarily completely degraded, and I think economically even more under strain. So I think let's see how far this goes. But I think the president's tweet this morning that this is he's looking for an unconditional surrender. I think this is probably what the end game should look like.
If I could just add on Joe's great point about the drones, and I would make 3 points. First is the U.S. indicated that the rate of drone attacks from Iran has been decreased to 85%, by 85% from the initial salvo that they were able to launch. So that's encouraging to see. Second is the CENTCOM commander yesterday called the Lucas, which are the U.S. One-way drones, repurposed from a seized Iranian drone. He called them indispensable. So that's interesting because we didn't see that in Midnight Hammer last year. We didn't see U.S. use one-way drones. And third thing, and again, the CENTCOM commander mentioned this, is that they have deployed capabilities in the region that are now changing the cost calculus for countering the drone attacks. So in the past, we relied on expensive Patriot missiles, other missile defense assets to shoot down Iranian drones. He said that now they've been able to invert the cost equation, and they have fielded capabilities that are 10 times cheaper than what an Iranian drone costs.
Thank you, because you just answered the YouTube question, which was how's the U.S. using AI on the battlefield in Iran. So thank you for that.